Hey everyone, welcome back to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Or if this is your first time here, first off, I'll tell you my name is Dan Reeves. My background is in 12-step recovery, and that's where this podcast kind of originated. You go back and listen to some old content. It's similar to what people do at 12-step rooms all over the world, but all kinds of uh, issues or whatever you want to call them, and tell their stories. And that's kind of how we seem to communicate primarily, is by storytelling with one another. And we do that here. But over the past year or so, or maybe longer, there's been people coming and offering their viewpoints to the podcast, and I love doing that. I'm getting to meet people from all over the country and all over the world, and share tools. I just kind of filed under a couple categories: folks who are forces for the good, and folks that are shining their light. They've got tools, and that's what I mean, sort of, about the light. And most of the time, people have been, we go through things, and I kind of think our job is, once we get through something and we learn from that, our job then is, our assignment, our mission is to come back and show other people how we got through it, so maybe make their journeys easier. And that's what the 12 steps is all about too. And that's what happened to me. And do that today. My guest today is Micheline Green. I was asking her first name in the beginning. I'm funny about names. I like to say them right, and I, through recovery, I guess I've always had it, but it clarified in recovery. I have almost like a Rain Man, like the old Dustin Hoffman movie,
Yes.
ability with faces and names, and it's a super gift to be able to see somebody like 3 years later and say, "Hey,
Wow.
Mark," and they look at me like, "Who are you?" And then once I tell them who I am, more times than not, they'll remember it. But I have a funny thing about names. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I appreciate it. And I wish I had your ability to remember names because doesn't happen so often.
Yeah, I hear that more than not.
Hmm.
It's been a real gift in the rooms because people come and go, and
Yeah.
they disappear. And a lot of times I'll meet you once, or just even once, and I may not see you for 3 years. And when you walk in, I remember a particular guy. I was like, "Hey, Nick, is good to see you back again." And he would make a comment
Yeah.
about that. And I didn't do it on purpose. I just knew his name. I wasn't trying to do anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just remembered him, and I said his name, and it meant something to him. And that was something that he will talk about, like when he shares his story. He
Mm.
come in and some dude remembered him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always nice to be remembered. It's always nice to be seen. Don't always all any of us just want to be seen.
Yep, yep. Where
Hmm.
we talked, I'm in New Albany, Indiana, which is basically a suburb of Louisville, Kentucky. Where are you coming
Yeah.
from?
So I'm sitting in Scottsdale, Arizona today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'll bet your temperature's a lot more tolerable than mine is at the moment.
Currently it is, but in like 3 or 4 months it won't be.
It's scorching hot.
Yeah, scorching hot in the summer, beautiful in the winter.
Yeah, but don't they say it's dry heat? It's not
Oh,
so bad.
everybody says that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Hot's
I
hot.
know. Yeah, climb in the oven and turn it up. You're not going to care if it's wet or dry in there.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
well, cool. I did a little bit of looking up and seeing. I always do a little bit, but I always hesitate to do a lot. I try not to. I
Sure.
like to come in here like almost as a blank slate.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Now it's just a conversation between two strangers. What are we going to talk about? What are you curious about? Yeah.
Well, mainly, one of the things that I saw was a lot of having to do with parenting.
Hmm.
So at a glance, and
Yep.
obviously the most of my audience, that's we use powerlessness in 12-step recovery, right? That
Hmm.
term. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that like clicked really when I started applying that to my children, about how powerless they make me feel, as
Mm.
far as like being able to like make, because there was a time I thought they should be doing what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
necessarily wrong. There's, I got to keep their fingers out of the light sockets and things like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
that line between guiding them and attempting to control them, because I did make myself a little bit crazy trying to make my kids what I thought they should be.
Yeah. How old are your kids now, Dan?
Well, now I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son, so they're not
Okay.
really kids, but I suppose my
No.
88-year-old father lives with me, probably looks at me and still sees 10-year-old Dan at some level.
Yeah, probably. I don't think parenting ever ends, really. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, parenting has been a consistent theme throughout my 30-year career. I started out in child protection right out of university. So I was already really passionate about caring for children, advocating for children, making sure that they were in the best environments that they could be in. So that was always really important to me. And after child protection, which was a very, difficult job, uh, I think that's why they recruit the young university graduates to take them out. I was up in Northern Ontario. I'm a Canadian, so I grew up in Montreal and lived in Northern Ontario, and it was a very depressed community, and a lot of people had already left, and it was an old uranium mining town which had all closed down, and so there was a lot of challenges in the community. And obviously, whenever there's stress in an adult's lives or in an adult community in the community, children feel that they are energy receptors far beyond before our words come out of our mouth. They are picking up on our energy. So after child protection, I had my own children, and so I then switched over to a master's in counseling and went into school counseling so I could work on the same cycle as my kids. And that's when I really noticed, like the interactions between teachers and children, a lot of, this was 20, 25 years ago. And so there was a lot of, more like 20 years ago, there was a lot of teachers that were just at a loss. Like they didn't understand these kids' behaviors, and still comparing it to the past, right? And like we tend to do. And so a lot of these teachers were bringing me their students with this kind of look in their eye, like, fix them, just take them and fix them. And of course, I could sit with the child and counsel them and play games, and it was one-on-one, and they got that attention, and they got to be seen, and we worked on strategies, and I'd take them back to class, and sure enough, there's the same teacher and the same student coming right back down to my office the next day. And so after observing this for a while, I really started to recognize, like, this kid's doing the best they can. It's a good kid. They want to help. They want to succeed in the classroom, and they're trying on these different strategies. And this teacher was well educated and been in the classroom for 20 some years, and she was at her wit's end. And so I started to realize it's not the child that is the problem, and it's not the teacher that's the problem. It actually is, there's a connection problem. Something's
Mm.
going on inside of this connection, because that student could work fine with another teacher, but it was this teacher. And so that's when I really started to ask that question. Like, one, I didn't have the skills at that time to help this teacher see, you know, what work she needed to do. I myself was a young mom at the time. I had 3 kids. I often joke I was the school counselor who could, keep it calm and cool all day. And then I'd get in the car and I hadn't even left the school parking lot and I was shouting at my own kids. So, it's a very humbling and human experience to be a parent. But when you ask powerful questions in life, as I'm sure you know, you get powerful answers. Life will show up and show you some very powerful answers. And so when I was asking the question, how do we as individuals create change? How do we as organizations create change?
Mm.
I've been on a journey for 30 years answering that question, and it's taken me on a lot of different paths, but I really feel that, it has to do with us as humans being together in this connection with one another. This is no longer the times where monks are sitting in the mountains by themselves. We have to be enlightened beings here and now on this earth, mothering and leading and going to jobs and paying bills. And how do we do that? It's easy to escape life, but just go home for Christmas. You'll find out you are not enlightened very quickly. Right? Families are where we started all these patterns. So from there, after school counseling, I studied integral theory. And integral theory is a very comprehensive and rigorous theory of human development. It was created by Ken Wilber, who is an American philosopher, and he actually went to Harvard in the 60s to study AI. And
Oh.
once he got there, he started going to all these consciousness raising groups, and he realized, wait a second, why are we studying artificial intelligence when we don't yet even understand our own human intelligence? And then that, led him down his path to create this theory called integral theory. It's being used around the world, in medicine and ecology, in business, in education. and it's also in human development. So I'm an integral master coach, and I have worked with a whole wide range of people throughout my 16-year career as a integral coach. I train new coaches now around the world, and my particular area that I work with is really high capacity women, women who we know we want, like culturally, we do want more women in leadership. We want more women in policy making. We want more women in boardrooms and leading companies. We're all recognizing there's a lot of contribution made by women, and yet these are also still moms. And we cannot forget that they are that very important connection that happens with the mother and child, especially in those early years, 0 to 7. And so I've just completed a book called Leadership Parenting, and it's written specifically for purpose-driven women leaders who are mothering the next generation. And it's really looking, because the more I was in um, parenting, and then I moved into coaching leaders, the skills that leaders need today are the exact same skills that conscious parents have been doing for years. It's
Hmm.
the same set of skills, the ability to be deeply present, to have empathy, to be flexible, to be systems thinking, to be forward thinking, to have metacognition, which is thinking about your thinking, to be self-aware. Like, these are all skills that many, many executive leaders around the world are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for coaches to help them embrace these skills. And this is something that parents have been doing for generations. And we've also lost sight of that too. We've forgotten how to really parent in that way, and we've gotten distracted. And so this book is a way of helping mothers recognize that what I say is leadership and motherhood are the same thing. They are one of the same. And instead of this constant pull that mothers have, like, I'm torn between my kids and I'm torn between work, and I want to be with my kids more, but I'm so like fired up and driven at work, and I want to contribute in these ways. And so how do we bring these two together? Well, it's through the exact same self-development of skills and capacities to be able to hold more. And what I mean by holding more is not like doing more, but I mean having a foundational capacity with inside of ourselves. This is deep inner work that I do. It's depth work. It's not doing more or performance hacks or, how to optimize your calendars. This is like, how do we actually release some of the control and the gripping that we have on our lives to prove, to push, to get ahead? And how do we actually release that so that we can recognize the connections that we truly have, one with ourselves, then with our kids, and then with source, as well, which is something that we've all lost a connection to.
Yeah. Yeah. You used, I heard one word come through that really, distraction.
Yeah.
There's just a lot that
Yeah.
wants to call for our attention today.
Yeah.
And I can certainly think about, even as a father of, that balance between
Yeah.
trying to, you got to go make money. And I do like to work, and there's something in my soul, something almost like it's like DNA almost that where we want a purpose and we want to do, I want to go kill the dinosaurs and drag them into the cave for us to eat.
Yeah.
Uh, Almost that primitive of a thing. And I know that motherhood and similar, but, I think, we've all been, as time's gone by, this has had to evolve and change. And I'm not sure we've done a real good job of that, managing
Mm-hmm.
it. Plus, it happened so fast too, it seems like,
Mm.
things didn't progress that fast 100 years to the last hundreds of years. There really
Yeah.
was not a lot of change.
Yeah.
And then boom, especially here in the past, I don't know what, 40, 50 or so in my lifetime. I'm 56, so
Yeah.
I'm a pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and was able to like be into my 20s before that stuff actually
Yeah.
became popular, which I see as a huge blessing today.
Yeah.
Because I can
Yeah.
remember handing my son in the back seat, busy, him, trying to get him occupied so I could drive wherever we were
Yeah.
driving. I have no idea. And going, and handing that cell phone back there to him in the back seat. Today, I visualize that like I handed him a crack pipe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't manage it. I didn't do a
Mm-mm.
very good job with it. I had no idea what I was
I
doing.
know. I know. So you and I are of the same age, same generation. We're Gen X. X was the X factor, right? It's the unknown, it's the bridge. It's a bridge between, the end of one paradigm and into a new paradigm. And we've lived that in our lives. I mean, we didn't know what recycling was when we were
Yeah.
in a childhood, and now we know that we recycle, and we didn't have. I mean, I remember as a kid, I'm sure you do too. Could you imagine, like, maybe one day there like be phones in cars, cool, right? Like as a little kid, you would imagine these things. And I mean, look at where we are now. I mean, it's amazing. And you're right, we didn't have the knowledge about what these phones were or how they were. But again, I come at it, parenting is a deep wisdom tradition.
Mm.
So wisdom is passed down, right?
Yep.
Whether it's directly through from what we observed in our parents or our aunts or our community or our tribe, but also it's passed down through our DNA. So there's knowledge in our DNA of what was passed down as we are discovering in this day and age, right? And so parenting is a wisdom tradition, and if we are not connected to that inner wisdom, then we've cut off ourselves from that wisdom. And so wisdom is a big part. I call myself a strategic wisdom partner because I partner with clients for periods, long periods of time. I don't, it's not just a, it's no, there's no quick fix here. There's everybody, we're all addicted to wanting the quick fix, and there's no quick
Yeah.
fix. There's no pill, there's no three-step plan. This is deep work that we are in. We're in another transitionary time. We've ended with Gen Zen, and now we're starting Gen Alpha, right? Like this is again another bridge between time and space. And so we have to recognize these threshold moments. And so one of the things about wisdom is it's a capacity that we have to let go of an identity, and that's part of this distraction. We are
Mm.
all so addicted to what's going on outside of ourselves, the noise, the scrolling, the drama, the that we cannot hear or listen to the depth of wisdom that is within inside of us. There is a small voice within us that we have lost connection to. And so this wisdom partnering that I do is helping these women, these high capacity women leaders, right, who are purpose driven, lead not just from their hearth, right, the home, but also into the horizon, because they are creating the future through every action and every moment that they have with their child. And so that requires a real depth of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you're just talking about the schools, and not knowing what to do back then, but that's still that message. You see it today that teachers and school bus drivers and everybody, not everybody, but it's a loud voice. And, that's one of the other things is that, what I've ever known about that at a certain point in time, but now all this, I guess controversy equals clicks or something of that nature, and everything's a controversy, and I felt myself in the past few months getting pulled back. I did a really good job some years ago of like emotionally disconnecting from that stuff without totally putting my head in the sand, but I
Mhm.
felt in the past few months of it getting me again, and I'm kind of been taking some actions to try and detach from
Yeah.
being connected to this stuff that's really well, frankly, it's just not serving me,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
powerless. I'm powerless with most of it if it's true or not true, and that's a whole nother thing. It's tough to tell what the truth is today,
Yeah.
except for in that inner thing. That's one of the
Exactly.
deals is that going in, from a time, from just speaking from my substance abuse stuff.
Hmm.
The first time somebody offered me something, there was that little voice saying, "No, Dan, don't do that. This is not going to be a good thing." But
Yeah.
my wanting to be seen, heard, fit in, and all that overrode that. And time after time, that little voice, and I'm way better, I lost that. Uh,
Yeah.
we say, I like it, we talk about recovery. Everybody's recovering from something, right? And there's a
Right,
definition
everybody's
someplace.
addicted to something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
uh, to reclaim that which was lost or stolen. And that's kind of like recovering a vehicle or recovering.
yeah,
But, I also put it to my own, like my soul, my essence, me, what's my
yeah,
inside, because this sack of bones and body is one thing, but there's something more powerful inside and recovering that connection. And speaking of connection, I think I, I can't connect with you really without being able to connect to me.
totally.
And
Yeah,
there's a piece of that. How can you raise children if you're not like grounded in that way? How could you
if you're
do
just,
it? I've
yeah,
always looked for these words like successfully or
yeah,
fruitfully or what. I don't know what that
yeah,
term is, but I think we understand one
consciously.
another
Yeah.
consciously. Yeah.
Well, that's the work in my book, Leadership Parenting. It really is a process of coming home to yourself. Because I mean, I've lived through all of this myself. I am not teaching anything that I have not lived through, you know. I am not a preacher. I am a doer. I am on the ground. I have, fallen over and gotten up as many times as the next person. So, um, one of the things about leadership parenting is, our children, when we're distracted and when we're not providing them the attention that they need. Attention is literally a currency. It's an electrical currency that is being exchanged. We are energetic beings. We know that now, right? We couldn't talk about this even 30 years ago. It was like, really, are we? Now it's like, no, we're all talking. We're energetic beings. And so when like you and I are in a conversation, even though we're thousands of miles away, our hearts are falling into a coherence, right? Because we're connected, we're providing each other attention, we're listening to one another, we're fully present to one another. And so there is a coherence that's happening. When we are distracted from our children, they are going to try and get our attention in whatever way they can. I mean, I watch, I'm observing all the time because I am a coach and an observer and I see patterns everywhere. And I watch little kids, they're grabbing the phone out of their parents' hand. They're trying to get their attention. And if not that, they'll go and hit their brother,
Yeah.
and that's what I was as a little child. I was one of five kids and I was struggling internally. And my parents couldn't see my struggle. And so I acted out in all the ways that I knew how to act out to get their attention. And it wasn't positive attention, it was negative attention, but I got it. I mean, my older sister will say, "You suck the energy out of every room," and that's because I was trying to get attention, which, when we think about attention as a currency, that's your currency of love. Where are you putting your attention? Where does your attention get pulled and distracted throughout the day? And one of the big things is, we're just starting to learn this as the public now, but these companies, larger corporations, have known this psychology for years of dopamine and scrolling, and our brains are wired to see the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and we get addicted to it. So we're now waking up to this, and this is part of the learning process. And so when we're able to give our kids that attention, they can regulate their hearts with ours. And if our bodies, our autonomic nervous systems aren't regulated, we're dysregulated, which so many of the mothers that I work with are, the pressure that they feel. And I mean, it's not just my clients, it's everybody. We are in a pressure cooker right now.
Hmm.
So it causes a lot of dysregulation within our autonomic nervous system. And our children are deeply feeling that. And so the only way to be able to help our children calm is we have to start with ourselves. We have to find that place within inside of ourselves that we can just stop and compose ourselves. Just stop moving sometimes, stop talking. I give practices all the time to the clients that I work with, and sometimes I'll just say, stop talking. Mothers sometimes women have a way of processing and processing and processing, and there's a historical reason for that. Our voice has not always been heard, and therefore, we don't go direct to the point. We tend to talk around the point, right? So that's this historically why women and people of minority as well, not always a direct voice. So there can be more talking because it's talking around the topic. That's exhausting for children. It
Yeah.
really can be. I was that mom too, you know. And then the joke is sometimes all their dad needed to do was say, go to bed, and they'd finally go to bed, you know. And meanwhile, I'm processing the whole day and, that sort of thing. So I think it's what you said is very key, is like, we got to come home to ourselves. We've got to find that inner place of stillness, that inner place of wisdom, that inner voice, and I tend to say this is the soul. This is the seat of the soul, is our wisdom, which is
Yeah.
passed down through generation and generation. So therefore we have access to that lineage of wisdom all the way back.
Yeah, yeah. I have a really good friend who one time offered me something and it stuck with me. These things like you said, picking up, most everything I know, I've obviously picked up from somebody. And
Yeah.
as he said to me that he said, I try to learn from all the ancient spiritual wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we was really talking about, the whole thing, the 12-step recovery, you come in with some kind of thinking if it's religious and you're hearing the word God and you're hearing this stuff. And then they say, no, you can pick your own. But then they said God. And now hold on, God. And now which one are you talking about? Uh, and it takes a while to come to something like that because, like that kid, as a kid, I was trained in certain things and not on purpose, not to harm me. Nobody had anything that they were trying to press on me. They know they weren't. I didn't get that in my, I know some people do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I still had a couple boxes that I thought, okay, it's either got to pick this or pick that. And then
Mm-hmm.
when this guy said, no, you can like mix it all up together and use it all. And this wisdom, this parenting wisdom is something is like introduced a whole nother one because I think of, Buddhism, Hindu, da da da,
Mm-hmm.
all this kind of spiritual wisdom, but this
Mm-hmm.
parenting thing is definitely spiritual wisdom too. And as far as our
Mm-hmm.
essence, when I got to the recovery, another one of these blocks for me was they told me I was spiritually sick.
Mm-hmm.
The book says that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, it's tough to like put words into just fits everybody, right? So no matter
Yeah.
how they'd have put that, somebody's going to say, "I don't fit for me." But what I
Yeah.
found now is that like I thought that they were saying I wasn't religious enough, and I rejected that. But now to a day, what I think about is that what it was is that my very soul was somewhat ill. It was sick. I wasn't caring for it. I wasn't cultivating. I wasn't in touch with it. And therefore, that is the kind of sickness. And, cultivating that over
Mm-hmm.
time is what they were really saying,
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
least in my opinion. And I believe, pretty across the board on
Yeah.
that. Uh, I had, and one thing that I've been getting, do you get tapped on? I say I get tapped on the shoulder by messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like the
For
Carl
sure.
Jung synchronicity thing. I hear
Yeah, of
this
course.
concept and this concept, and it's coming from different angles.
Of
And
course.
I've learned to listen to that. Go, okay,
Totally.
the universe, source, somebody's trying to tell me something I should pay
Yeah.
attention. And I'm spending some time making sure I'm bored a little bit every day. Like
Yeah.
do nothing, not even like because I would fill it
Yeah.
with meditation, but I'm doing. And my
Yeah.
friends would call me the Energizer Bunny because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm a human doing. And
Yeah. Not a human being. Yeah.
yeah, and taking some time, there's a productivity thing in me. Like I connect a little bit of my self-worth to how much I'm getting done or not. And I actually recognize that with living with my father. Some of
Yeah.
that's to please him because I got this idea growing up, and I don't think he did this to me. I don't think he did. This was not him because I think I hit the jackpot in the dad department. I
Oh.
really did.
Oh.
He gave me attention. There is millions of pictures of
Yeah.
dad on the floor
That's
with me when I
lovely.
was little, and I was tagging along with him when he was handyman, and I picked up all these wonderful skills that I can almost fix
Mm.
anything today. I build stuff, make stuff, and I still love him to death. We talk, spend
Yeah.
time together every day, but I got this idea that that's how I got love
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is by doing, by
Yep.
impressing him with the things I was doing. Hey, Dad, you know what I did today? hey, Dad, you know what I did today? And that's what, and he wasn't asking for that. And I don't think that was required. I don't think he did that.
Yeah.
But I got that. And so some of this
Not,
stuff gets that blame off of them. It's not his
yeah,
fault,
no,
it's just something I picked up.
yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is, yeah, it's beautiful that you're sharing that because I just, it's not conscious that your dad was doing it. It was an unconscious um, way that he was communicating, because I'm sure that's how it was communicated to him in an unconscious way. Children are programmed literally up until the age of 7. Their brains are being hardwired, right? We know this now. We didn't know this 60 years ago when, we were coming into this world. So we know this now that things are happening in unconscious ways. And what you just named is exactly what we as a culture are have absolutely exhausted. We've exhausted this sense that we have to prove ourselves to our parents, to our bosses, to our love interests, to our children, to anybody, because really I think what you named is we're starving to be seen and to be connected. And what do I mean by connected? You mentioned it. I said it's a deep connection to source. To we are nature. We are born of nature. So if you want to look at nature as source, or whatever created nature, again, in your worldview, we all have different names. For me, divine, source, right? Consciousness itself. And so we've been cut off. I mean, we can tell we're cut off from nature. Look at the way we just continue to extract. Everything is extractive from nature, from our relationships. What can I get from you? What am I going to give you? I want to get more from you. I don't want to give you that much. Like everything is extractive. And nature doesn't work that way. Nature is all about homeostasis, balance. There is destruction, but there is creation. And when a tree falls in that forest, she continues to feed the forest for generations to come. So there's so much beauty and so much wisdom in nature, and she is a mother. We call her our mother. So there's the wisdom tradition being passed down, right? Is through our mother. And so I want to take it back a little bit here, because when we as parents have been disconnected from our own source, which then leads to disconnection from ourselves, which then leads disconnection with our children, right? You can see how this just breeds and perpetuates all throughout our culture. And um, then we have, hang on, I lost my train of thought there. I looked away for a second, just a second. So then it's a disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from culture. Okay, so what ends up happening is the child has been observing, I have to prove myself to get their
Mm,
attention. So then you live your life. I've got to work hard to be seen. I have to work hard to make money. I have to work hard to prove myself. And again, my clientele are women in big positions of leadership. And they've had to prove themselves in this male dominated business world. And they still are not in equal proportion in a balanced way, right? And so I too grew up, you and I are about the same age. So it's like, I too grew up like, I wanted to keep up with the boys. I wanted to play all the boys' sports. I wanted to prove to my dad that I was just as tough as my brother. Like, all of this is deeply ingrained within me, and unconsciously pass some of those patterns on to my children, my daughters. And so then when our child is disconnected, then they don't listen to that inner voice.
yeah.
And what do we want more than anything else as a parent? Please, 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 more than anything else in the world is don't take drugs. Don't get into a car with a drunk driver. Don't make bad choices when we're not there, right? We trust your own inner voice. Trust yourself. That would be the number one message any parent would want to pass on to their child. But if all of those dominoes that I just lined up, if those aren't lined up, then we know what happens.
Yeah. 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 That's you're kicking off all kinds of bells
Mm,
in my head. 'Cause,
yeah.
I'll talk to people like you, and it helps me understand like, and I got to be real careful because I don't want to like out people in my life that watch this podcast, right? And but there's like ding, 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 ding. Uh,
Mhm.
I sometimes hesitate to talk about this, but I do sometimes. Like my son is a complete gaming device addict. I mean, just
Yeah.
now he takes care and he lives with me too. So I've got a 22-year-old son in this house,
Woo!
me and my 88-year-old father in this
Woo!
house together.
Three male generations all
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
one
My
roof.
favorite little saying is you can walk in the front door and it don't take you a second to figure out there's not been a feminine touch in this house in some point. Uh, but and we get along great and we operate together great and everybody is taking care of their stuff. There's no problems, there's no issues, there's no anything like that. Uh, but my daughter fell into addiction path. And,
Mm,
at 17 years old, we're dealing with her taking those Mexican pain pills that are fentanyl and asking me for help. And it was horrible. And, and
mm,
it's been quite, it's been a few years since she's
mm.
had fentanyl, but, I did the same thing in my substance abuse history where, I'd say, well, I'm no longer doing that. This is not so bad, and there's a
Mm.
little bit, okay, because
Yeah,
one of those other things, you never know which one of those is going to kill you now.
exactly.
Now
Exactly.
all this could be that, right? You could get in a car with alcohol and that could be
Yeah,
the last day too,
yeah,
but like a
yeah,
risks issue and like the harm reduction kind of aspect on it. And this is where
yeah,
I'm going with not being able to tell like, I felt very honored that she came to me to ask for help because
yeah,
I've been 12 steps, and she did, she come. And
yeah.
but we're still, we're still trying to find our way. But then again, I also look back and go, what, at 20 years old, what am I wanting her to be 45-year-old executive all of a sudden? That's not possible. Not that that's what I
Yeah,
want, but I also have to
true.
look and see, because I was doing some pretty crazy stuff when I was that old too.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. I think what we did when we were younger is even crazier than what the kids are doing now. I think the kids, like we were free.
yeah,
Gen X was free. We were
yeah.
out roaming.
You weren't
You
gonna
know,
find me.
we were just, when we were really little, be home by dark.
Yep.
And then when we were teenagers, it was crazy some of the things that we did and I did. And my kids had lots of freedom. I raised my children in a very different way. Um, I had them in a Waldorf school. I graduated. So here's like my kind of journey with my kids is I graduated from a public high school thinking I was stupid. Like I just got by. Woohoo!
Me too. Yeah. I
360. Woo!
barely
Got it.
graduated.
Barely got there. And I watched all my other friends who could study, 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 and then regurgitate it on a test and get their 80s and 90s, 5%, and I'd be like, I can't retain any of this. Like, that's not the way my brain worked. I was a physical athlete, I was kinesthetic learner. I had to be and do to understand anything. So I didn't want my kids to leave high school thinking they were stupid. I wanted them to have a fuller experience. So I was always looking into they were in Waldorf schools for a while. Then I homeschooled them. Then they went into Montessori school. My son went off to public high school. My two daughters, eventually both of them quit high school on my encouragement. I think high school is a bit of a glorified babysitting at this point, and it's a absolute diminishment to the human potential that is in our adolescents today. Our adolescent brains, they're built for innovation. They are built and hardwired for connection and seeing things that we adults cannot see. And what we're doing in public schools, I think, is a huge disservice to our young people. And so I encouraged my girls to quit high school. And my oldest daughter, she um, wanted to go and live in France for a year. She wanted to go and learn French. So she
Mm,
went abroad with a program and she lived in France for a year at 15.
wow.
Then she came back to the US and her dad, we were divorced at the time, and her dad insisted she go back into public high school. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. But she went. And within 3 months, she was like, Mom, I'm in jail. And I'm like, I get it. You got to talk to your dad. You want to quit, you quit. write your GED. She quit, she wrote her GED, and then within 3 months, she was living in Bolivia
Yeah.
at 16 years old. Went with
Wow.
another family, lived with them. Then she came back to the States. The whole reason why she couldn't stay in the States, our status down here, she moved to Canada. And then she started taking online college classes. So by the time she was 19, she had lived in 4 countries and now she spoke 3 languages.
That's education.
That's real education, you know? That's why these young people who are want to, I am always talking to parents, let your kid quit high school, please. You know, yeah, of course, with parameters and all that, but it's so important that they get out and learn how to learn on their own because high school does not teach them how to learn. It teaches them filled with information. And especially at this massive juncture that we're at with AI, right? Like they can learn everything and anything they need, you know, flick of their buttons. So
Yeah.
why are we trying to teach them something in high school? What they need to learn is how to be human beings, not human doings,
Yeah.
human beings.
That's,
Because the only way we're going to get through this meta crisis that we are in, which we are 100% in a meta crisis, meaning there's multiple systems and structures that are collapsing as we speak, and they're all connected and conjoined. And it's too, for trying to tease this apart, it's almost impossible. So during this meta crisis, what's going to get us through this meta crisis? Well, I turn back to the wisdom traditions. I turn back to Mother Earth. I turn back to the indigenous communities.
mm,
They are still alive, even though every country on this planet practically has tried to eliminate them.
that interesting.
And what has kept them alive? Their relationships, their connections with one another, with their source, and with their wisdom. That is why now many people are turning to wisdom traditions for guidance, for solace, for understanding.
Yeah. In a different way than what was really been at least taught in my perimeter of growing up of these limited you shall, thou shall not, and
Yeah.
this more of a, but and I really do connect with our indigenous people on this continent and the way they went
Mhm.
about life and their feelings on, that because they were connected from there to the core,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all that had and does have meaning. Not had. Uh,
Hmm.
I really like exploring that. I probably relate more with that kind of thought than what, the
Hmm.
Western religion type of stuff just never fit for me. It's kind of like that same inner thing. There's always, from the time I was a little kid, there was something going that this don't feel right. Something don't
Yeah.
feel right. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not like run from it, but it
Yeah.
just didn't feel right. And the same thing coming up through school, man. I hated school. I
Hmm.
hated it. I mean, looking
Hmm.
back, I just suffered through it.
Yeah.
Uh, I spent well, I graduated midterm on purpose, only because somebody offered me a job and I could go
Yeah.
do something I liked to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I'm real grateful for that. That actually is like, okay, out of there, on to something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I spent most of my high school high on dope just to get high in the mornings, go to school to make
Yeah.
it to lunchtime, and then
Yeah.
get high at lunchtime to make it to the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so it was a fog, and I didn't ever feel like I fit in, and just I don't have fond memories of school where, I'm
Yeah.
running into some of my people that were classmates, because I've like thought about this. I've said this a couple times. Here in New Albany, Indiana, I started thinking I've lived in 4 houses and I could walk to all of them from here in about 10 minutes. I've lived in like a half a mile circle all my life.
Wow.
I live in my
Wow.
childhood home. This is the home I grew up in that I
Wow.
eventually bought from my parents when they wanted to
Wow.
downsize and I was still married. And then things happened and I'm not married anymore.
Yeah.
And now I live in, so that I'm all like a very rooted individual.
Totally. I'm
And
the complete opposite.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have
I have a
no,
really good friend, and I talk about him because of our
yeah.
dichotomy. He's like a nomad, man. He never
Yeah.
lives anywhere but a couple months, and he's moved
Yeah.
someplace else. And it goes, ugh, I can't even hardly, but I kind of
Yeah.
can like do some vicarious living through him with his with our differences and coming
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
That whole connection issue with, the connection thing with people in 12-step recovery and the recovery community in general,
Mhm.
filled a
Well,
big void for me that, I didn't know I was missing,
yeah, yeah.
and doing life together like that. Um, I was thinking, and as we talked, and it does, like, I think about that, like professional mothers and being
Mm.
called to do, I almost think that's like almost too big a job to ask to raise kids and have the careers that some
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
today. I mean, that is a
Hmm.
pile because we've never really asked men to do that.
No. No.
Uh, but today we're asking, not asking, but it's whatever, it seems that's what is on the plate.
Yeah,
If you want to have both of those things, which
right,
most of us do.
right. I want to share a little story with you. It's about the idea of capacity because the work I do is deep inner wisdom work, and it's about expanding capacity within inside of ourselves. So there's a parable that goes that there was this, master and he had an apprentice and the apprentice was always like impatient and wanting to learn more and how come it's not going fast enough and so the elder said, go back to the house. I want you to bring 2 handfuls of salt and I'll meet you beside the lake. And so the master slowly walks down and goes and sits by the dock by the lake and he waits for the young apprentice to come. And he's got his tea mug with him, the elder, and he scoops up the lake water in the cup and he says, "Okay, put 1 handful of salt in this cup." So he pours the handful of salt in, he stirs it around, he says, "Now have a sip." And he's like, "Ugh, bitter, ooh, salty, ah, ooh, yeah, it's hard to take." Now take the other handful of salt and put it in the lake and stir it around and taste the lake water. It's clean, it's crisp. It has to do with our capacity. We
Mm,
all are handed the same handful of salt, the bitterness of life, the difficult, the challenges, the stings of life.
mm,
It depends what size our container is, right? And as you know, you've been through a lot of challenges. Your capacity grew to be with the hard, salty, stinging, bitter parts of life. So you can handle those moments much better now than you were able to handle them back when you were addicted or even much younger. So when I talk about leadership and motherhood becoming one, this is not about you're going to still do all the things you do at work and you're going to do all the things at home and you're going to be perfect at them because that's what women are trying to do now.
mm,
And they're not perfect anywhere, right? Not that ever could you ever be perfect. And I just reframe that. But ultimately, it's they're exhausting themselves and they just feel guilty and torn and exhausted all the time because they're not fully present in one or the other. And so this is the depth of capacity work where we actually are letting go of this incessant need to prove our worth, the incessant need to demonstrate our doingness, our worthiness, our value. Because I'll tell you, and I'm sure you can sense this yourself, Dan, a powerful mother, when she says enough is enough, everybody listens, right? So when a woman is able to hold the capacity of both leadership and parenting and recognizing it's the same set of skills, they actually build much greater capacity within inside of themselves. And as a result, they end up doing less, but it becomes more potent,
mm.
becomes more energetically contained and directed to where they need it to go.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Recovery, I can see that in my own life. At times, I was like, at capacity and felt exhausted, and then
Yeah.
did this work? And then later on, I'm like, at the end of the day, and even though it is still a little bit of a doing thing, I'm amazed at how many things I can accomplish today and how many people
Mhm.
where I can be present. And it
Yeah.
did. It increased my capacity.
Yeah.
It opened that up. And,
Yeah.
at some level, what I had was a big clog in an area of it,
Yeah.
that needed to be cleared.
Yeah.
The capacity was there. It was just clogged up with something that wasn't
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. And I think it's like, well, when we reach capacity, because you know, I do offer, I think we are all like this pressure cooker we're in. We're recognizing we've reached capacity. We
Hmm.
can't keep going. This is not sustainable.
I say that over and over.
Everybody is talking about being exhausted. Everybody's kind of seeing it. We're not really talking about it fully yet, but it's like, what the heck is going on? And I think there's a lot of us who are still trying to hold up an identity, like we're gonna get through, or it's everything's okay. And it's kind of like, no, things are not okay. And it's okay that they're not okay because this is capacity building. Can we be comfortable with not being comfortable?
Hmm.
Can we be okay with not being okay? Can we sit and actually feel what we feel when we're still? And I'll tell you, this is not just for mothers, but this is who I tend to work with, high capacity women. That's really hard to do
Hmm.
because once we start feeling, we are afraid that those feelings are going to take us over. And those feelings are the deepest guidance system that we have. And we have been ignoring this whole interiority of ourselves for far too long and so focused on the exteriority that we now have to come in and face this interiority. And as big and as wide as this universe is, I promise you, your interiority is just as big and just as wide and just as immense as what's out there. And so this is the process of coming home to ourselves, beginning to be able to feel again. Because honestly, I'll say, I think what's deeply underneath our fear of feeling is because we are in, we're afraid to feel grief
Mm.
because we're losing um, a way of living. We're losing a way of living that we have all lived for so long. This is not going to be the same life in 20 years from now.
Right.
We
There's a
know this.
huge transition happening.
There's a huge transition happening. And so, again, this is something mothers know. We've gone through identity. When we become mothers, our life is no longer our own.
Hmm.
We are immensely connected to keeping the survival of a child alive with our bodies as well as our hearts and everything else we have to offer. So that's a huge identity shift. And so we have to grieve that old part of ourselves. But we
Mm.
as a society never take time to grieve. We
Yeah.
never take time to grieve. And that's a huge missing piece. I do believe grief is the way in to finding our wisdom.
Interesting. Friday I had a guest who was talked, his whole thing was grief. And not, it was from a loss of somebody for him, but he had looked at it in a more broad way than just that. And he mentioned this same thing of this grieving some way of living that,
Mm-hmm.
we all, I think of that talking about like sitting still. I visualize like just constantly hitting the snooze button so I don't have to wake up. Just hit the
Yeah.
snooze, hit the snooze, hit the snooze. Every
Yeah.
time I get with myself and get to thinking
Yeah.
and doing all that, I will hit some button that will give me
Mhm.
some distraction so that I can get away from that. I can go back to sleep, sort of.
Yep. Yeah. 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 I love that metaphor of sleep awake, right? I mean, that's kind of Rumi has a beautiful poem that says, don't let me go back to sleep. It just keeps coming back to, don't let me go back to sleep. It's about crossing over the threshold into awakeness. Don't go back to sleep, right? Because we know deep within our souls, we know we are in a huge threshold moment in humanity. We know it.
I'm frankly
Yep.
scared.
Most of us are.
I mean,
Most of us
I'm
are.
for the most part terrified about what's going on, and every time I pop something open, all it does is increase that fear.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I was saying earlier about not popping that stuff open, trying
Yeah.
to do something, anything else. I spend a lot of time in the woods.
Yeah.
Uh,
Beautiful.
Tonight after this is over with, I'm heading an hour or so away to a forest management class. I'm fortunate to own a little bit of forest, and even though you
Nice.
talked about the tree falling, and I've been like for the
Yeah.
past weeks, I've been learning more about forests and trees and that
I
ecosystem. And I thought I
know.
knew a lot, right? I've grown up. That's the other thing. Dad, he's drug me to the not drug me. I loved it, and I still do to
Yeah.
the woods. I spent my entire childhood feels like in the woods or on the water in a canoe. We grew up hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things where I can, where I can actually feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I go down to our property in the country, there's no cell
Yeah.
service, and then I can just go down there and be,
Yeah.
you know,
You're
and
totally just like naming exactly everything I've been talking about, right? Coming home to ourselves, coming home to mother, coming home to nature, just being. I just came back from 2-day backpacking trip in the Superstition Mountains.
uh,
I mean, no cell service, nothing. And you got like, okay, I got like 7 hours until sunset. Just gonna be.
yeah, yep.
Let's watch
Yeah,
the
that's one of the things
show.
I like about hunting. I don't ever, and I don't have any problem hunting. It serves its function.
Yeah,
I'm totally
yeah,
understand all that thing too.
100%.
We've been doing that forever also. Uh,
Totally.
Talked about bringing the dinosaur home earlier. Uh,
Yeah, of course.
But I found myself over these past quite a few years, I just go sit and I'll spend all day just sitting,
Yeah,
watching birds, watching squirrels, sometimes for hours seeing nothing. There's
I
nothing
know.
happening.
I
And
know.
sometimes there are. And I always think about like a battery charger for my soul is out there. There's
Totally.
something that charges me, that brings me back. Like, and then
Yeah,
I come back into this craziness that happens, to go into work and
yeah,
caretaking dad and trying to
yeah,
continue to lead a couple kids and
yeah.
12-step recovery and just start, you look at your to-do list, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, 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 for sure. There's definitely, um, we're energetic beings. We get re-energized by being in nature. We're grounded. We know our center when we're in nature, right? We rely on ourselves, not on all our gadgets and gadgets, right? We rely on the technology of being human because this body is a incredible technology.
Yeah, we
Like,
don't even know.
it's incredible. We don't even understand. I mean, we're just pulling back layers on how our autonomic nervous system works, you know? I mean, and I've studied with a couple of people that are on the cutting edge learning about the autonomic nervous system. And it's just, most of our nervous system starts within our gut. So let's just think of all of the gut issues that people are having these days. IBS and PCOS and I mean autoimmune and leaky gut and I mean this go on and on and on. And it's like, wait a second, that is where our most primitive part of our autonomic nervous system that's the grounding system. So when you go to nature, that's exactly what's happening. I feel it too. I can't wait till my next hiking trip. I can't wait to be
Yeah.
sleeping on the ground and watching the nighttime show of the sun setting and the stars coming out. Like that's addictive to me. Like I want more of that, right?
I
And so
detox. I know it. I feel it in my soul at times,
yeah,
and I'll be like sketchy feeling, and I'm like, I need to get to the woods, and there's plenty of places, Johnny. Everybody
yeah,
lives for the most part within reason. It didn't take me long to get away. And the other thing
yeah,
is, we talked about, well, there's no cell phone service. And I always giggle, that this thing has an off button.
yeah,
But man, is that off button hard to use, right? I
yeah,
almost had to force myself into a situation where, like that, go down there where it doesn't work instead of
yeah.
going, okay, can you not regulate yourself, Dan? Can you not?
Yeah.
uh,
Well, this is really interesting, Dan, because it's actually we should probably name this because it's really important for people to understand that, well, can't you just turn the off button? Like it's so simple. Like just, I mean, I always use the example of losing weight, right? Like there's not an adult in the Western world that doesn't know if you want to lose weight, Eat more vegetables, move more. Start there, right? Every one of us knows that. And yet we continue to have this obesity epidemic and all of these fads and this and that and then bombarded. So why, if it's so simple, we can see it, it's so simple, just turn it off. Why can't we do that? So this is where I started asking that question. How do we as individuals create change? Because obviously it's so simple, but we can't do it. And so what it is we don't yet have the skill set of a new way of being.
Mm,
Our current way of being is, oh, I'm feeling squirrely, so I'm going to go and do something else. Oh, okay, now I've done this other thing, and now I'm like, okay, I've got some quiet time, and my son wants to, okay, I'm going to go and do something else, right? Or, oh, I'm going to start a new project, or my kids have just moved out of home. I'm going to get a puppy. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, right? Like the pattern, right? The pattern is within our bodies, and the skill set that we have is my belief system is I have to prove myself to be of value or to be worthy. I have to do in order to produce, to be considered value and worthy. That it even goes deeper than that. Like if I don't care for others, then I might not be loved. Like you can
mm.
hear these kind of conditional beliefs that we as humans carry, and they're unconscious. So this is the work I do with my clients is we're doing deep work to find those unconscious beliefs, because those are unconscious beliefs are completely connected to the unconscious behavior patterns. And so when we say, well, why don't you just turn it off? It's like, I can't, and we've got a 600 reasons why and 400 more distractions and all sorts of other things besides doing that one thing. And so once we start, I call it pulling back the layers, right? It's like a tangled ball of yarn. And this is why I work with people for a long period of time. It's like, let's take one thread and start pulling. Oh, we've just hit a knot. Okay, we're going to sit with this one for a while.
Yeah,
We're going to go
just
down
I
and
want to
in.
stay there. We call it peeling the onion, but it's way messier than an onion. Onion has clean layers. That
Yeah, yeah.
darn ball of yarn is more accurate.
Yeah, because you pull one thread and it's like, oh, now I'm tightening four, six other threads, right?
Yeah, that's way better.
And here's the piece that I think a lot of, well, I shouldn't say that, but I think a lot of people miss this when it comes to coaching and stuff like this is the way that you are doing things, your defense mechanisms, your protective measures, your current way of being, it's an intelligent system and it needs to be honored. And we need to go slow and we need to have compassion.
Yeah.
And we need to keep coming back to honor. You took drugs for a reason, Dan, and that was an intelligence system that your system did that to protect you from something else. And when we can actually look at these ways that we are, we're so fed up. I just ate another box of donuts, or I just took another drug, or I just slept around, or whatever the things that, or I just yelled at my kids again, things we don't want to do. And yet we catch ourselves doing them again and again. It's just that tight ball of yarn, and we have to slowly start pulling it away. And so this is the work that I do with my clients is we help open that ball of yarn while at the same time learning the new skills of that new way of being. So
Because you
you
can't just
don't,
pull it out of there. You're not capable or not.
right.
It's too much.
You have to build new skills so
Baby
that
steps.
when you're distracted, you don't go back to the phone. You go, wait a second, I can go to the woods. I can go for a walk just in my neighborhood. There's a new skill now available to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And those little things, there's a lot of talking about, and abstinence lifestyle stuff. And a lot of people that doesn't necessarily work for. They have to like slow it down. And like
Mhm.
12-step recovery will say that doesn't work, but there's no necessarily straight line in
Yeah.
life, I started learning to use my do not disturb button often in my phone. That was progress. I
Yeah,
took
yeah,
social media off my phone so that the
right.
only time if I'm going to look at that, I'll have to sit down here at this computer to do that. It is not
Yeah,
in my pocket at work. It's not in my pocket at the doctor's office. It's not, and begin, but I couldn't, and
yeah,
I'm just like I'm processing my own journey a little bit with you that,
yeah,
these little steps, I've taken these little steps to start doing something different.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's about coming home to yourself again and again to make that
Yeah.
choice. And you have to be present to yourself to be able to make those conscious choices. Einstein said we will never solve the problems at the same level of consciousness that we created them from. You know, we
Yeah.
have to grow. We have to cross the threshold. We have to expand our consciousness to be able to look back and go, oh, look at how silly we were. Because really,
Yeah.
we humans are just children. I
I
really,
just think we're all goofy.
we're all just, yeah, quirky little kids. I mean, we're like toddlers on this earth. You know, I kind of find, I find some humor in, I do believe we should be taking care of Mother Earth, and I do believe we should be doing our work. But at the same time, it's like, I'm going to save Mother Earth. And I'm like, really? Really?
Hmm.
24 years old and Mother Earth's been around for 14 billion years. Really? It's okay. It's developmentally appropriate for where that 24-year-old is. It's still like I'm going to save, I'm going to be the rescuer. And that rescuer and victim and perpetrator, that triangle within
Yep.
us, I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yep.
Yeah, we all got that. And
Yeah.
we keep moving around that triangle, right? And so
Yep.
again, it's another part of our identity we're going to have to let go of as we cross this threshold of humanity that we are currently in.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'd said something earlier, it's uncomfortable. It is. It's uncomfortable. And that's just,
Very.
some years ago, a gal I was dating tricked me into going to yoga. And
Tricked you. Oh,
yeah,
come on now. Sounds like a bit of a victim mentality there.
it was my birthday was coming up and she said, I want to do something for you for your birthday, but you can't ask what.
Oh.
And I was like, well, but I trusted her and I said, okay. But a few days ahead of time, and it was coming down, I'm like, you have to at least tell me what to wear. Do I need a
Yeah.
suit and tie
Yeah.
and she said, just wear gym shorts and t-shirt and tennis shoes. And so I thought maybe it was a couples massage or,
Mhm.
this. It never crossed my
Yeah.
mind until we pull it up there. She pops the trunk and grabs two yoga mats, man. And if she hadn't have took me, if she'd have told me ahead of time, I would have found some way to weasel out of that. If I could have
Yeah.
run away from her car that day, I would have done that. That was what my
Yeah.
initial internal response,
Yeah.
looking back
Yeah.
was, and I went in, I fell in love with it. It was a
Mm.
12-step yoga meeting. It
Wow.
was
Okay,
half
cool.
12-step meeting, half yoga. It was hour and a half, 45 minutes of each. And I walked out of here going, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Uh,
Mm.
and so that's what I mean about tricked me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
I'm forever grateful. Here it is 10 years later, and I still hit the studio 3 to 4 times a week minimum. And this is like I always call it, it's kick your ass yoga, and I love
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's hard. You're in a puddle of sweat at
Yeah.
the end, and but where I'm going here is, and I went to teacher training. I mean, I just because that's the other
Wow.
thing, man. I'm one people, man. When I'm going to do it, I don't do a lot of things halfway. When I did drugs, I didn't do drugs and alcohol halfway. Uh, and but that was taught to me this concept and this is kind of along that baby step kind of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of things that you can't just rip the band-aid off all the time is that concepts there of that are way beyond just getting in weird poses. It was finding some comfort in an uncomfortable position
Yeah.
and learning to breathe through that because
Yeah.
that's called for in life. These tools that I'm doing in that mat, I had no
Yeah.
idea what they were doing for me in the outside world. It's taken some
Yeah.
time to go, now I see what that actually
Yeah.
is teaching me because when I run into a hard time out here someplace or I bump into something that takes my breath away, my default is to stop, slow down,
Yeah.
pause, breathe,
Yeah.
because I used to forget. I didn't know I was forgetting to breathe. I didn't know I was
Yeah.
holding my breath when things happened, which only intensified my body's reaction to what I was experiencing.
It's a
And
natural physiological response. Thank you,
yep,
body, for having a natural
yep.
physiological response. Yep,
Yeah,
for sure.
but these, and and again, what I said in the beginning of that, the 12-step recovery was my springboard, and it led me to these other things that have taught
Hmm.
that have led me to meet people like you, to learn from you
Hmm.
today,
Right.
and I was in the Mankind Project. That's who introduced that triangle to me,
Yep.
uh,
Yep. It's a
and
beautiful
yoga and
organization.
various
Yeah.
things. And now, it's crazy. That's what I just that tap on the shoulder when I got that email that said, "Hey, come take this forest management class." I was like, okay.
Hmm.
It's 3 hours every Monday night and an hour there and an hour back. It's an
Whoa.
investment,
Commitment. Yep.
but you don't get anything. Not much comes without some commitment, some kind
Yeah.
of,
Well, you're
rarely do
putting,
they show up with the silver platter ringing my doorbell saying, "Here, Dan, here's a gift that you could just have for
yeah.
free."
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I don't know. I could question that too,
it
but
does happen.
yeah, what I am seeing is you are putting your attention towards it. And what you're doing is actually you're putting your love, your energy towards this forest management class. So it's really out of a love for the forest that you're committed to 5 hours every Monday night. It's
I'm
beautiful.
fortunate to own a little piece of it out in the
Yeah.
country, and it's like, well, I should take care of that better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's super cool.
And I find myself so engaged doing it. I don't know. I giggle at myself at times because I do feel like a kid in the classroom the way I should have felt back then, because I'm engaged. I know you got to be careful with that shoulda stuff, but it's like, man, I am loving this learning here today.
Well, why? So let's ask that. Why are you loving this? Because you love the forest, because you love I love learning. I love learning. I hated it in high school. All I needed to do in high school was figure out on how to cheat on the test. That's what I learned in high school, right? Other than that, I was playing sports, and yes, I smoked my fair share of dope, right? And so then it's like, what now? I am a ferocious learner. I have never stopped learning. I got
Mhm.
so many certificates, and I mean, my bookshelves are jammed packed, and I mean, that's what I would want for any child, is to
Yeah,
find where it is that they want to invest their love, their energy, and their attention. And
yeah,
that could be on music, it could be on gaming, it could be on books, it could be on physics, it could be on anything, but they've got to discover it. So this is now from moving from the mother to the child, which is where I kind of started with children and then I went to the parents. And now I'm going from the parents after I teach them how to come home to themselves, to be present with their child. Now the parents can model to the child how to find their own inner wisdom.
mm,
Because one of the collapsing systems is the school system. We know that it's a collapsing system. It's not serving our children, period. And so now, when we're actually going to be able to guide our children to find their own inner wisdom at younger and younger ages, so they don't have to be our age, 50, 40, 50,
yeah.
60, to figure this out, we know we have an inner voice now. So, how do we start teaching this at younger ages? And we're seeing this, it's happening all over the world. I have clients in 34 different countries. I have offered workshops in 5 different countries. It's happening every corner of this earth. This threshold, this expansion, these waking up moments are happening everywhere. Haven't coalesced fully and completely into one new paradigm yet, but it is like mercury drops out there. And we used to have a thermometer that actually had the mercury in it. So we know when you smash that, those little mercury drops eventually find each other and they come together. And we're not quite yet at that tipping point, but I do believe we're very close to this amalgamation of everything coming together into this new way of being for
Mm.
all of us as we cross into this new threshold.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that. I feel the same thing. I feel a lot of it because of the people I meet through this podcast, that there is
Yeah.
something going on. And it is happening. People are waking up, but it's in these pockets here and there, and they're not
Yeah.
making a lot of noise, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
other things are making noise.
Well,
And
if we come down to fear and love, which one is going to grab our physiology or our autonomic nervous system quicker? It's
sure,
always
the
going to be
fear.
fear.
Yep.
And we are being fed fear every single day, all the
Right.
time.
Right.
So we have to take, as individuals, like you said, turn off the TV, turn off the news, turn off this fear mongering that is coming at us. We cannot wait for our governments or our policymakers or our leaders to be the ones to say, right, social media is bad, we're going to get rid of it. We have to start right here inside of ourselves and with, these little connections that we make with others along the way.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What a
You've
beautiful,
raised my vibration this afternoon, that's for sure.
yay. I
That's
feel enlivened as well.
Yeah,
It's a
I
beautiful
love
conversation.
doing this. Whatever, again, I believe in some divinity, some divine thing. I don't know what, I would never begin to proclaim I knew about it, right? I
Mhm.
just believe it and feel it and experience it.
There you
Uh,
go.
so,
That's
uh,
enough to know.
the evidence, one of my other favorite things is the evidence is piled up too deep for me to deny it.
Yeah.
The things that have happened in my life since you said, like at 45 years old, I got myself in enough trouble that I had to do something. It was go to prison or not, and I didn't know that getting sober would keep me out of prison, but it did. And
Yeah.
it rolled in. You talking about turning off TV? It's another thing. And I sometimes will find myself sounding noble because I don't watch TV. I stood in front of a judge down in New Albany, Indiana, told me I was going to the sentencing guidelines for the crimes you have committed is 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections. I was
Mm,
breaking in houses, stealing pain medications from people,
mm,
and uh, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't, and it was that the thing I hear lots of times in here is these people's turning point. It was for mine too.
mhm.
That final like surrender and ask the universe for help. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Please help me.
Yeah.
And help arrived, upon that request. And, I felt like I was in a black box and there was a little pinhole in the back bottom corner, man. And it was 12-step recovery saying, come here. And
Mhm.
nobody else was offering me any help. And I
Yeah.
was on home incarceration for a year. So I wore
Yeah.
an ankle bracelet for a year in
Okay.
2015.
Yeah.
Um, and it's expensive. I
Oh,
didn't know. My lawyer said, are you sure you can afford this? And I was like, I can't not afford it, you know?
yeah.
The alternate, I can't afford that. And
Yeah.
was $100 a week, which, ain't a
Wow.
great deal of money, but at the time I kind of was not very good with I
Of
didn't have a
course not.
stockpile going on. Uh,
Right.
and I couldn't turn off the gas and I couldn't turn off the electric or quit paying insurance or the house payment, but I could turn off that box on the wall, which was someplace upwards of 100 and something a month.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was we say in recovery,
Yeah.
and I use the word all the time, but God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turned off
For
that
sure.
TV, and that was that baby step thing that started.
Yeah.
Another one of those is I look back at that. I see my life in the rearview mirror mostly. When I'm
Yeah.
standing here, I don't really see it that well, but when I
Mhm.
get downstream a little bit, I can turn around and go, "Hey, that was now I kind of understand what was going on back there." And that's that
Yeah.
evidence piling up thing
Yeah.
that
Yep.
gives you
For
hope to
sure.
keep on charge, keep on moving forward with it too.
Yeah.
And offer others hope, more importantly, probably.
Indeed. Indeed. Together. It's how we're going to get through this is together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I've enjoyed talking to you. We're a little well over an hour.
Okay. It's
Uh,
been wonderful. Yeah.
um, I tell people that it takes me when I get an email, it takes me about 3 seconds to feel here. Is this a guest or not? And
Okay.
I know that fast every time,
Wow.
And so I've
Wow.
been looking forward to it. And it's a weird thing because I mean, I'm just I call myself a Southern Indiana hillbilly, and then I get to talk to these people from all over the world and do what I'm doing today. That's another one of those. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Assignment
fantastic.
accepted.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so amazing. I obviously, as I shared, I'm more of a gypsy soul. I'm traveling all the time, moving about, but like again, meeting people all over the world
We're
because
doing
of
very,
technology, as
yeah.
well.
Yep.
Been
Yeah. And,
amazing.
COVID, right? I never knew
Yeah.
anything about any of this until that hit and,
Yeah.
shut down my AA meetings. And what do you mean I can't go to
Right.
hold on, who are
Yeah,
you to tell me this is my lifeblood? You don't
I know.
understand how
Yeah,
important this is to me. You're going to tell me I can't? And at
right.
the same time I got introduced to this, it took me about, again, number of seconds before I owned a license and was sending it to all of my buddies going, here's how we will meet.
Good.
And
Good
we
for
did that
you.
for a few years. And then now it's become this thing where we can
Yeah.
I always said what looked like to be the worst thing could ever happen to a fella turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. And time after time, that has
Yeah.
proven out to be true
Yeah.
too. I love the work you're doing because I don't think there's anything, I see that in my life too. Sometimes I think my part of my assignment, 12 step recovery, is to help men be better dads. Uh,
Okay.
and not because that's what I'm trying to do, because
Right.
that's what's happening.
Yeah.
uh, I'm not, that's not, I think you understand that, and I
Yeah.
watch these men who were, just closed off and were, basically just failing in every aspect. And now watching these free spirit young, because I've seen a lot of them have these babies, you
Yeah.
know, and or young kids to begin with. And I watch these men raising these kids and allowing them to have that free spirit. They're happy little kids,
Mhm.
man. They're free. They're, and they're not like stepping. That's one of the things I say about that spiritually sick thing. It's
Yeah.
like you step on a little kid's spirit, you
Yeah.
step on it, put these boot prints in it, man. And then some years
Totally.
later you go, well, why are you drinking yourself to death? Why
Yeah.
are you and I'm
Yeah.
watching these
Why are you
men.
talking back to me? Why are you yelling at me? Why are
Right.
you
Yep.
not listening to me?
And I think it
Oh,
comes back to that. Like, let's not step on their spirits in the
totally.
first place. It's bad. The world's going to do a little of that on its own. It's going
Yeah.
to. But we certainly, as parents, don't need to be. It's our
Yeah.
job is to allow that freedom. And I'm seeing that. And it's beautiful. I just love to watch these little free spirited kids run around with their parents now that they're sober. Their dads are sober.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'll be sure to send you my book. It's coming out shortly,
Awesome.
Leadership Parenting. Yeah.
I can't
Wonderful
wait.
to be
No
with
doubt.
you.
That's another thing. I read a bunch and
Yeah.
absorb stuff. You're doing great work. And I think again where I circle back to that is that, that's where I think the change is made.
Hmm.
It's cool that me and you are better than we used to be. That's cool.
Hmm.
But the real deal is how do we cultivate these youngsters so that they can come up through this world in as healthy a manner as they can, so they can actually be the ones that actually are ones that are going to make this difference that we're talking about work.
Hmm. Hmm. They are our future leaders.
Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, uh, any final words? Anything you want that?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach me at my website, michelingreen.com. I have one, two things available there. I have one called Awakening Your Spidey Senses. If we're going to come home to ourselves, we need to come back into the intelligence of our body. And our body is made up of senses, and most of us just think of the five senses. And so I have laid out 15 senses, five physical senses. There's five subtle senses, and then there's five transpersonal senses. So how to actually start connecting with source or divine or energy, however you want to call it. And so that is a free offering on my website, Awaken Your Spidey Senses, because I think it all starts with coming home to our bodies first.
Yeah, I love that. Spidey senses. I use that term quite often too.
Yeah,
And I'll be checking that out. I have the website pulled up here actually. So, well, thank you. And
yeah,
it was more than a pleasure to knock these things. That's why I love knocking these concepts around
yeah,
and
yeah.
talking about them, share them with other people. Well,
Indeed.
enjoy the rest of your evening. I don't take long to put these podcasts out, so I don't do any kind of schedule. I record them, process them, release them. It takes me a few days sometimes, according to what's up in life, but I'll
Yeah, of
fire off
course.
them links in a few days and
Of course. So do you edit or do you not edit or
barely. I mean, what
oh
was there to really need to be cut out with what we
yeah,
just did,
yeah.
really?
No, that's great.
And again, it's kind of
Well,
this thing of going, okay, I see this, and I did think I needed to be in here like clipping out the ums and and I have a
no.
story behind everything. I interviewed a guy in my wood shop in the backyard where I used to do this, and people would come one on one, and it was a fall, and I have giant oak trees in my backyard, and acorns were hitting the metal roof. Sound like rifle shots.
Oh,
And I
not
found
good
my
for podcasting.
not good. and I found myself in there trying to clip these things. And I'm like, is that really where my energy needs to be going right now? And I put it out in the world. Nobody said anything. It wasn't near as bad, I guess, as I thought it
Yeah.
was. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, most time, Source doesn't require me to edit these things most of the
Yeah.
time. So, I kind of clip off the front and the back end of the small talk sometimes, but that's about the
So this
extent of
small
it,
talk we're having right now.
probably. Sometimes not though,
Yeah.
we're humans, I think
Mhm.
I never set out to have like a sterile, highly produced podcast. I feel
Too
it's
much
just
work.
demonstrate. Yeah. And this is real,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not making a TV show. I'm not,
Mm.
uh, so yeah, so I just
Yeah.
let the dirty be in there and the messy and
Yeah.
whatever. And
And let the listener decide
there's a
what they
pause
want to.
button on there and leave or
Absolutely.
whatever. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Do you put it on YouTube or is it
Hmm.
just okay, so it's
Yeah.
video
And
and
I guess
audio.
I should, sometimes I ask that. And sometimes, when I've had people tell me I should get a liability waiver, and I'm like, what am I doing that's going to require liability? Am I going to get sued over these conversations?
Yeah.
Uh, but I usually ask, is it okay to put it on YouTube? And then I post it. I take the audio and I put that out there. Zoom has
Hmm.
allowed me to has been such facilitated the YouTube thing so well.
Yeah.
And so I put it on YouTube and then I pop it out on, I don't know how many Spotify distributes to 10 or so different podcasts, Apple, but the only
Yeah.
ones I really pay attention to is YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And I really don't
Right.
pay attention to them. That's just who I make sure it happens. I don't watch the numbers. I don't,
No. No. You're just doing what you love.
yep. Uh,
Yeah.
Try not to have
Beautiful.
any, make it worthwhile energy, not anything less than that.
Indeed.
All
Indeed.
right. Well,
All
enjoy
right.
your evening. I'm gonna change gears and then go be forest management
Nice.
class guy here in a little
Yeah.
bit and
Good. Go
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 learn
take
some
care.
more.
Maybe it should be forest caring or something. Forest management sounds like the
It does
forest
sound
you're
like that, but that's
managing.
what it is. And the instructors
I
are
know.
really good people, man. We had a field trip Saturday where we went and they walked us around and we did tree
Wow.
ID and they showed us about
Wow.
how why certain trees like to grow here and there and just a whole
Very
lot of information. And I found out I'm the best tree ID guy in our class because my
look at
dad taught me
you.
all that
A
stuff
plus.
growing up. Dad just taught me what a maple tree, and that's a red maple, and that's a silver maple, and here's a red oak, and here's a swamp oak, and and
Hmm.
I dogwood and redbud, and I
Well,
take all
coming
that for
back to
granted.
it's your memory of names.
You know,
That's what it is.
I had
Because
not,
I just realized like I don't not good with names and people could tell me all sorts of names of trees. I'd never remember it.
I
But there
had
you
not made
go.
that connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've just learned their names.
You've just learned their names exactly. Yeah.
All right. Have a
Okay.
great rest of your day. As my favorite yoga teacher says, have a great day on purpose.
All right. Bye for now.